Good morning. That was very good. Good morning. Oh, that's very good after last night. It was fun here last night too, eh? You guys know how to dance. I gotta say, that's a wonderful time. Let me first start by thanking your officers and your executive union. Those are people who put an amazing amount of time into your organization to make it work, and also an amazing amount of time into the Federation of Labor, because the Federation of Labor is really just all the affiliates. You know, Denisa is on the Women's Committee and is a co-chair of the Women's Committee, and she's very active on the Council of the Federation. Bonnie is an officer of the Federation of Labor and spends a great deal of time also at the public sector meetings, which are meeting every week now, of course, in the middle of collective bargaining. And Ken Robinson has been an officer of the Federation of Labor for the last 4 years and very active in the Federation of Labor. And I want to thank all of them for their contribution as officers of your union and also as officers of the Federation of Labor. I also want to congratulate, of course, Victor, the new president of the union. I know I'll look forward to working with him. We certainly aren't any strangers to each other. We've been on many, many meetings together over the years, and we'll make a great contribution to the Federation as well. And your new executive, congratulations to all of them as well. I was talking to the next Minister of Health last night. You may wonder who that is, but I think it might be Judy Darcy. That would make a good thing to me. I kind of like that idea. We were discussing getting old. Not that any of us are getting old, I've certainly not. And was that famous saying, getting old is really not for sissies. Well, I notice as I'm getting old, I'm spending more time in your facilities. And I'm glad to see all of you are there taking care of all of us. I was recently in one of those facilities talking to my doctor about my back, except that we spent more time talking about politics than my back. He seemed to be interviewing me, not the other way around. So at one point he said to me, you know, I got offered a job in the United States. I said, oh, you did, eh? He said, yeah, they came from Seattle, they offered me a job, and they offered to pay me $1.5 million a year. I know, geez, those guys do all right, eh? $1.5 million a year to $2 million a year to go and work down in the United States and be the head of this big unit down there in spinal clinic. So I looked at him and said the obvious thing, so what the hell are you doing here? And he said, do you remember Mike Harcourt? And I said, well, how could I forget Mike Harcourt? He was the premier of the province. He said, yeah. Well, you remember he fell off his deck? And I said, yeah, NDPers were having troubles with decks, those premiers. But he fell off his deck, and in all seriousness, he did hurt himself fairly serious. And so he said, well, when he came to the hospital, I operated on him. I said, oh, okay. He said the next morning he went up to see how Mike was doing. And he went into the ward and he checked on Mike, and he said, after I checked on Mike, I went across to the bed, across from Mike, and I checked on the fellow in that bed. And he was from the downtown east side, and he was a homeless person. And after I operated on Mike Harcourt, I operated on this person. And the reason I'm still in Canada is because those two people, a homeless person and the ex-premier of the province, got the same care in the same hospital for the same people. And that's what this is all about, folks. It's about equality and justice and fairness for everybody. And that's public health care. And let me say, I wish all doctors were like that doctor, because I know they're not. Because some of them operate private clinics in British Columbia. Some of them extra bill in British Columbia, and that's illegal, and they should stop it. But I also know that the people in this room and this union, the HEU, is one of the reasons we still have a public health care system today, and the work that you do to defend that system is priceless. Because at the end of the day, our job as the HEU and as a labor movement is to make sure that our kids have the same access to quality, decent, public health care that we had growing up, and they should have the same access we should. And that's something we have to stand together for. It is kind of, after all, one of the most precious forms of solidarity we have, that we take care of each other when we're sick. What could be more important to us to get the best care for the people we love when they're sick? And that's why solidarity is really the precious commodity we have in this room. It really, scraping away all the papers and all the books and all the reports, and all of that stuff in the front of the room, the back of the room. The only thing we really have at the end of the day is our solidarity with each other. That's what the whole thing is based on. And that's why what the BCNU did was so wrong. Because what they did was the opposite to solidarity. They attacked fellow workers, and they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars attacking other workers in the system and poisoning the hospitals. I was in those hospitals during the raid. I talked to LPNs. I went to their doors, knocking door to door to door, talking to them. What they did was wrong. It's wrong. When we started this labor movement, we've said it's wrong all along. It's wrong today, and the labor movement is 100% behind you in fighting them. And this isn't an HCU problem. This is all of our problem in the labor movement, and we all have to solve it. So we will be there. We issued a statement as officers of the Federation. It was a unanimous decision to suspend them from the Federation. They are still suspended and will remain suspended from the Federation of Labor because of what they've done. And it's not you. They're coming after other healthcare workers and other unions as well, and we know that. And we have to be united, we have to be strong, and we have to be on the offensive against them because they're the perpetrators of this problem, not us. And we have to do that together. Let me talk a bit about the other opposite of that, which is back to solidarity. You know what looks to me like solidarity? 96% strike vote. That really looks like solidarity to me. You know what looks to me like solidarity is that rally yesterday, and you had the other two association presidents from the other unions standing up and saying that we're not negotiating for this association, and we're not negotiating for that association. We're negotiating for all healthcare workers together. Doesn't matter what association you're in, because everybody deserves a fair deal. So important. Let me tell you how solidarity happens in the labor movement. It happens with hard work. I called the first meeting of the Public Sector Bargaining Committee over 14 months ago, almost a year before the contracts expired. Why was that? Because I recognized that if we were going to get something out of collective bargaining this time around with this government, we better be together. Because no one was getting a better deal than anybody else. We're all getting a bad deal if we didn't stick together. And so we started that process over 14 months ago. We met with people in Quebec City, and asked them how they had a common front and how do we stick together going forward. And we had a lot of meetings talking about that, because you have to admit, everybody has their own union and wants to do their own thing, but at the end of the day, we have to do it together as well. What does that look like so far? We had a commitment that no one around that table was going to take concessions in their collective agreement, period. That was a huge commitment, folks. We said we need fair and reasonable wage increases for everybody. Everybody deserved fair and reasonable wage increases, and no one was settling for less than that, and that conversation took place. So that when those fish settlements started coming, everybody was talking about where can we win. We went out and polled the public. You know why? We thought the public probably might be on our side, despite what the government says, and it turns out we were right. Turns out we were right that actually the vast majority of the public said fair and reasonable wage increases were actually warranted for public sector workers who have taken zeros for far too long. And it wasn't just that they wanted you to have that, but they understood, the public, that they were falling behind too. They accepted that we had to do what was right for everybody, including them. And they wanted the same kind of wage increases, and so they should have them. We agreed to no Me Too's. We agreed that the union wasn't going to say whatever everybody else gets, if they get higher, I get it too, so that somebody didn't have to carry everybody else when they were at the bargaining table. And we agreed that if we're going to take strike action, we're going to coordinate it. This morning at 8:30, that meeting took place again, and they talked about what was going to happen next week, so everybody's on the same page and working together. And everybody's going to stay there, and this is my commitment to you if I have anything to do with it. Everybody's going to stay there till everybody has a collective agreement that's voted on by their membership and accepted by their membership, that's free of concessions and has wage increases for everybody in this province. That is our commitment to each other. I want to say briefly, we've had a lot of conversations about one particular group. It's not that they're better than all the other groups or anything like that. In fact, it's probably the opposite. They've probably been treated worse than all the other groups. And they're some of the lowest paid people in the system, and they do some of the toughest work, and that's community and social services. The community and social service workers and the conversations around those tables, I'm not revealing anything in secret. The conversation around those tables is that we're all in solidarity to make that sure that when the dust settles at the community and social services table, they actually get some of that catch-up they deserve as working people in this province, so they're closer to getting paid what the rest of us are paid in that system. And that's a big commitment we plan to keep. I want to talk briefly about an ad in the front page headline in the paper, Foreign Worker Program Faces Overhaul. Let me tell you, sisters and brothers, one of the jobs of the Federation is to represent all workers, including temporary foreign workers, who, by the way, mostly don't have a union. It is the worst kind of exploitation we've seen in this country, and it's growing dramatically under Stephen Harper. The most recent example is only the most recent example about Chinese miners coming in. That company never had any intention of hiring any Canadian workers to work in that mine, period. That's what we know, and that's why we challenge the government. They put out job applications saying you had to speak Mandarin. They got 300 applications, including some miners we talked to and talked to us, and they never even got interviewed for the job. Then they did the expose in China. They were charging, not this particular company, but companies in China were charging $12,000 for the right to come to work in Canada and to be virtually indentured to your employer. This program is not about immigration. Let us be very clear. Let's not get caught in the racist stuff they want us to be caught in. This isn't about Chinese workers or about workers from South America or from Timbuktu or the Mars. This is about every worker in Canada who comes here, has every right that every other Canadian has to stand up for themselves, to join a union, and to leave their employer. It's not a safe place to work. That's what this fight is about. And we have to be clear. If we need people from other countries to come to Canada, and we do, and most of us wouldn't be in this room today, sitting here, if it wasn't for the fact that our parents or grandparents or the people before us came here as immigrants. And I say that with reference to First Nations. We wouldn't be here. And so when we say today, yes, we are in favor of immigration, we are in favor of people coming to British Columbia, raising their families here, being part of our communities, joining unions if they so choose. But we are not in favor of people coming here for 4 years and being exploited and sent back to their country with no rights. That is wrong, and we must stop that now. You know, workers are exploited. In some ways, we're kind of lucky. We're kind of lucky because we have a union. We get to sit in this room, in rooms like this, and we get to talk about what's happening to ourselves. And we do that with a sense of freedom. That we can come and do that, and we're not going to walk back to our workplace and get fired. That we can sit here and talk about improving our lives, and we can take strike votes and go out and fight for those things. And that if we have a problem on our work site, we can stand up and we can express that problem, and we can actually have a solution to that problem. And I'll tell you, it ain't perfect. In fact, I know as all of you as activists know that the workers think you should solve the problem yesterday, not tomorrow. But there are the majority of workers in this province that don't have that right. Kayla came to a meeting the other day that I had at the Federation of Labor to talk about why, if employers are grossly negligent and workers die as a result, then it makes sense that they should go have criminal charges. They should go to jail if they're that grossly negligent. That's a good thing. If you're going to kill workers, you should go to jail. So all the families of those people who have had people killed, farm workers, loggers, all these folks, were sitting in a room because we were kind of convinced, the NDP labor critic, that this should be done under the NDP. There were two people in the room, however, that weren't there about their families. They were about themselves. One of them was Kayla. She was under 20. If she was 20, I doubt it. And she started off by saying, I am the walking dead. Now, you have to think about that. I'm going, she says this is this incredibly young, beautiful woman sitting there saying, I'm the walking dead. I'm pregnant, and I only hope that I live until my child grows up. She said, I worked for Arthur Moore, and I started work for Arthur Moore when I was 14 years old. I worked for Arthur Moore for 2 years removing asbestos from houses. I never wore a mask once. She said, when I said to this man, is this safe? He said, oh, you're a wonderful young woman. I would never put you at risk. He went around and collected up people from rehab centers, young kids, and put them in there. The guy sitting beside him he said, I'm a junkie. I was a junkie. No, I'm clean. He said, I didn't care, and everybody got paid at the end of the day with cash. The board came in and closed them down, he opened up again. They came in and closed them down, he opened up again. They came in and closed them down, he opened up again. Over 70 people were exposed to asbestos, which by one exposure could kill you, but constant exposure almost guarantees that you'll die at a much earlier age than anybody else. What happened to that guy? He didn't pay the fines even. He finally went to jail for the first time for a month because of contempt of court, not because of the fact that he killed these workers, basically, because of contempt of court. Because of contempt. Shame is right. And now he's walking around free. So we're going after him because, you know, he's a perfect example. He knew what he was doing. He did it to exploit those workers. He was told time and time again, and he walked away free. Listen, sisters and brothers, we owe it to the people like Kayla to make sure their employers pay a heavy price for this, and we owe it to represent those people too. There are working people. And that is the issue in part in the labor movement today. Are we this wide or are we this wide? Are we about union members? Yes, we are. As a priority, we want to make sure we keep the union going and growing. But the other question is, are we about everybody else too? Are we about people who earn the minimum wage? Are we about people who work in the fields and are exploited and killed in the fields? Are we about the killers of the world that are exploited at the age of 14? And my answer, sisters and brothers, that's the kind of labor movement I want to be part of, because all of those people are working people, and the labor movement is a movement of working people. And shame on us if we don't take care of those people, because we're not doing our job as far as I'm concerned. Okay, what's happening in May? Oh, it's that, right, it's the spring. What's happening in May? An election. You know, people tell us, oh, we shouldn't be political in the labor movement. We should just solve those grievances and ignore the rest. We'll all be fine. You know, that's politics. And you know, you get involved in politics, it's all bad for you. Well, I don't have to say in this room about politics. Because you know, if there was ever a direct line between a collective agreement and the government, then you know what that is. And those governments can take away our collective rights with a stroke of a pen and the passing of a motion. We must be involved and concerned about democracy, because if we're not, the wrong people win again. And it's a fundamental thing we have to do. Because we want a government in power that actually respects collective agreements, that doesn't tear up collective agreements, and respects the people in the system. I want to spend the next 4 years building public health care, not fighting privatization of public health care. I want to spend the next 4 years making sure that our long-term care facilities have the best trained staff possible, not firing decent people who have been there for years like George Derby and bringing them in with cheaper labor to replace them. I want to spend my time building those places. That's what our challenge is. I want safe work sites for everybody in this province. I want a labor code that says you have a right to join a union. You know what? A right to join a union. Because we don't have that right today as working people. Right now, under this government, it's a bloody risk to join a union. There are probably people in this room that have been fired for the right to join a union. I want to live in a country where you get to exercise that right, just like a business person gets to exercise the right to join their association of their choice. Fair enough, it's freedom. But it's also our freedom to join a bloody union if we want to, and do it without fear, to do it the right to do it. There are lots of things we need to do, and guess what? We will spend many days disappointed, because we're not going to get everything, but we're going to get a government that respects us and will do some of the things we need to have done, and that's important. We can shift that power again, and I want you to close your eyes just for a second. Just close your eyes. Trust me, I'm not going to jump down that thing. It's okay. And imagine for just a second May the 13th and waking up and having somebody say, and now we're going to have an interview with the Premier of the province, Christy Clark, again. You know, I just think about that. And then think about the other interview saying, and now we're going to talk to the new Premier of the province, Adrian Dix. Yes. It's time that she got her pink slip, and we got a new Premier and a new government and a changed province, and that's up to us in this room. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to do this for us. The media ain't going to help us. The corporations aren't going to help us. The health authorities aren't going to help us. We're going to have to do this ourselves. And what does that mean? That means every one of you has to get out there and knock on doors. That means every one of you has to get out there and talk to your friends and neighbors. That means every one of you has to take a day off on election day and go and make sure people come out to vote. Because let me tell you, this is not in the bag. These people are powerful, very powerful, and they don't want to give it up, and we're going to have to really work hard, be organized, not waste an ounce of energy, so at the end of the day we can replace this government with a government that respects this province and wants to grow this province. That is our challenge, and are you up for it? Are you up for it? Will we win? Sisters and brothers, this is our moment. Let's take it and build a stronger, better province. Thank you very much.